Well, happy Monday as usual on at 1 o'clock on every single Monday. You're tuned in to Act 3 on CHLY 101.7 FM. I'm Kathy Holmes. I am delighted to be your host today. And I have an interesting conversation for us this time round. We see people in our community all the time, and we often walk past without asking questions or having any understanding. And sometimes it's really, really cool when you meet people that you want to know a little bit more about. And today I want to meet a little or share with you a little bit more about some awesome people that live in our communities. So Trish Bingham, who identifies as she, her, Tami Nutting, also identifying as she, her, are in the Zoom booth with me today. And we're going to talk about transgender, what it means to be a transgender, and to really sort of break this conversation open. So first of all, I'd like to welcome you both to the program. I am so honored that you are here. I know that this isn't always an easy conversation, and so I'm going to be as transparent as I can from the very beginning to all of our listeners. I know zero. And so I really need your help to help me understand. Okay. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Trish, do you want to go first and give us a little bit of understanding of your background, who you are, what you do, how long you've lived here? Give me the goods.
Sure, Kathy. Thank you. I'm honored to be on your show.
Thank you.
My name is Trish Hope Bingham. I came out 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, 6 years in February. I've been a member of this community most of my life. I'm 62 years old.
Wow.
And I started this journey when I was 55. And before that, life was kind of humdrum. I didn't really enjoy my life. I knew what I wanted, but I just didn't think it was ever achievable.
Yeah.
And then, when I came out, I became a bit of an activist for transgender rights. I hold, well, not just me, but we hold marches twice a year.
Mm-hmm.
One in November. November 20th is Transgender Day of Remembrance. So we remember, we keep in our thoughts the people that have died, the transgender males and females.
Yeah.
And last year was a pretty sad time because the day of the Remembrance Day was that shooting in Colorado.
Yes.
And we lost 5 members that night.
Yeah.
So that was a sad day when we did the vigil for them. And then we have another one in the spring, in March, and it's the Transgender Day of Visibility, and that's on March 31st. And
wonderful.
That's usually the bigger one, because that one there we actually do a march. This year we're marching from City Hall down to Maffeo Sutton Park, where we're going to have a little bit of music and speeches and stuff like that down at the park. So yeah. What else can I say?
Well, that's a good beginning. That's a pretty good beginning. I have to tell you, you don't look 62. And for our listeners on the radio who cannot hear or see you, but they can hear us talking, you don't look anywhere near 62. So, whatever skin regime you're doing, darling, you're doing very, very well. So let's just start with that.
You learn all the tricks when we first come out. All the beauty tips. Right?
Oh gosh,
that's good to know, right?
From everywhere.
Tami, why don't you share a little bit about you?
Oh, hi. Thanks, Kathy.
Hi.
And also same welcome, and really honored to be here and asked to be here.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
My story is very similar to Trish's, actually. I've been on the island for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And recently only came out 5 years ago when I was 49, and I'm 55 now.
Wow.
So, and in a very short time have managed to gained a lot of traction because when Trish and I came out, we kind of came out really quickly. About 6 months apart, we ran into each other. We were really fortunate to make a connection.
Yeah.
Because we both discovered really quickly there really wasn't anything for support or anything. There was LG, there was lots of for lesbian, lots for gay, lots of there was lots of counseling in that, but there was nothing specifically transgender. So I had a partner that struggled with all the issues, but we just looked at each other and we said, well, if it's not here, let's make it.
Yeah.
So we both kind of became to step up and say, hey, we're here, we're trans, and we're human beings, and we just, we're here. And not give us, that's the wrong word, but just the respect, and we're human beings. And seek the counseling and the help that wasn't here in the community. So we've been very instrumental in bringing that here through our marches and being vocal, being out there, being proud.
Yeah.
Not taking the hate when somebody tries to dish it out. That's very important.
Yeah. So do you, and again, I want to be very, very respectful, and I'm praying that I'm doing that in this conversation. So at any time, and again, publicly, I will say this, I know nothing, but I know for sure that when you feel like you don't fit in, stuff hurts, and it hurts badly. And people often will prey on people who are not like that, right?
Yeah.
Can you share with us a little bit of what that experience has looked like for each of you? Like what has the hate been? How is it manifested? What do people do? And what does that do for you guys? Like, how do you get through that difficulty?
I haven't really been exposed to a lot of it because,
Thank God.
well, mostly because of my size. I'm a pretty big girl.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of people out there that really want to pick that fight with me.
Understood.
You know how to pick their battles. They don't want to, right?
Yeah.
And that's another thing that drives me to being the activist that I am, is that I get other girls that are a lot smaller than me, right? They're going to get that hate, right? Yeah. And I want to be there to be their support and to get them through it.
Yeah.
Right? Because I know it's not happening to me because of my size. I look like a linebacker. We're not about to, right? Right.
Well, I can understand that size will certainly have something to do with that. I'm no small cookie myself, and people don't traditionally mess with me very much either. So I'm with you on that. I think if you're a little more slight in size, then it's a little different, right? So there's something to be said about having that. But even so, there are snide remarks. There are things that people say. There is an insecurity around it. There's also so many myths that also go with it. Coming out certainly wasn't easy. And I know, that at 62, that's pretty late in life. And so I'm curious as to, may I be a bit voyeuristic, respectfully so, to get you, like, what brought you to this place where you woke up one day when you're in your 50s, middle to late 50s, and said, you know what, this is who I really am, and I want to come out. What was the prompt for that, without getting into your personal life too far? I don't want to,
For me, it was the breakdown in a marriage.
Yeah.
I had a spouse that cheated on me, and tried to throw me under the bus. She knew how I felt. I felt this way all my life, so I'm not comfortable as a male, right? And just never thought that this was ever an option for me. Growing up all my life, I was in a logging family. I never
very masculine.
This was never ever a thought for me.
No.
I always wanted to be the opposite sex. I always wanted to be a woman, always. But it was never an option for me, because in that day, they would have thrown me in a logging camp and turned me into a real man, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So there was a lot of fear in that. And then when the marriage broke down, it was I was literally thrown under the bus on February 8th, 2017. And it was very traumatic. I left my home with a bag of clothes and some toiletries, and I slept in my truck. The first night that I was by myself, I got on Facebook and I wrote up a big, probably 2 or 3 page letter and included a whole bunch of the pictures that my ex had taken of me in our times together away from Nanaimo, where she allowed me to dress up. I put it all on Facebook, and I hit that enter button. When I hit that enter button to post it, I cried for like 2 hours before that. Very traumatic.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
And when I hit that button,
Because you know what's going to happen.
yeah,
You just know what's going to, just watch, right?
when I hit that button, I felt the whole world just lift right off me.
Wow.
I felt like a butterfly coming out of a cocoon. I was like,
Wow.
this just feels so right. It feels so good.
Wow.
And then I had like about 350 friends on Facebook before that. And by the next morning, I had 19. They'd all
Wow.
left. And I thought, okay, well, you know what? This is part and parcel to it. I don't care what anybody thinks. This
Yeah.
is who I am, and this is
Yeah.
who I'm going to be for the rest of my life. And, you know, it was a matter of, well, I slept in my truck for 4 months, I think.
Wow. 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 So
Yeah.
you're basically homeless on top of it. Like
Yeah.
you're dealing with the grief of a marriage because I understand. I'm a survivor of 2 divorces. So there's
Yeah.
grief, whether it was good, bad, or indifferent, there's grief, right? So the
Yeah.
end of the marriage, obviously the end of many, many friendships,
Yeah.
some probably extremely close,
Oh, relatives.
And family members,
relatives and family members. Yes,
grandchildren,
Everybody's gone.
gone.
step
So nobody to
grandchildren,
support
step
you.
kids.
Nope.
I don't speak to them anymore.
So Tina, did you have a similar kind of experience then? You just sort of something
Well, in some
happened?
aspects, yes. Like, and that's a very common thing that happens in our community when we come out is all of a sudden we don't exist anymore. All of a sudden you're fighting for like just to be you and be recognized. And like, so when I came out, I had a very fortunate situation with my partner. I was dressing in private for a long time, and she sported that privately. At home, in the bedroom, great. Around the house, fantastic. But as soon as I step out that door, I better have boots and a jeans and Mac jacket on and be that guy. And that led to years and years of depression, anxiety, suicide attempts, failed marriages, you name it, drugs, addiction, booze. I don't know how I didn't land my ass in jail. I really don't know how I'm not, I managed to keep out of there. But I've managed to clean myself up. And the partner I was with, we managed to have some really tough discussions because she knew in private. And she asked me some tough questions that she knew that maybe the answers might mean the end of the relationship.
Yes.
Because realistically, I can expect somebody to love me for me, but gender is not the same as sexual partner. Like who I go to bed as is not who I go to bed with.
Absolutely.
So although my
Very, very important
partner and I
distinction.
still love each other very much on a friendship level, we have a very special connection.
Yeah.
She's not lesbian. She's not attracted to women. I respect that.
Yeah.
But as a friend, I knew as a partner, that was the end of the relationship. And I also too had to leave the home Grandkids, missed a lot of things over the last few years. Sometimes you try to get back into the fold, but it's never quite the same. My mom and my brother were extremely supportive. I'm very fortunate on that side because I know a lot of times families, they just toss them people aside.
Yeah.
And my employment, been very unfortunate on that side as well, been able to maintain some stable employment throughout the entire, since I transitioned. When I came out, it was interesting because I came out on my 10th wedding anniversary and my first day of a new job.
Wow. Wow.
I'm like, well,
Wow.
if you're gonna fire me, do it now.
Gonna do it now.
No,
They'll
not
do it
3
today.
months
It's gonna
now,
happen.
right? And when I came out, I said something to a friend online. I said, I'm out, right? I don't, I'm out now. It's okay. And then I started getting emails from people I haven't heard from 20, 30 years. And I'm like, how did you find this out? Oh, so-and-so said, you're out now. And he just emailed everybody. I'm like,
wow.
okay. Like,
So did you end up?
There was no small coming out for me.
So did you end up maintaining a lot of those relationships then, or did you lose
I've
very much?
maintained a lot of those friendships have
You
actually come
you were
back.
lucky.
The family ties have been cut a lot in
Yeah.
as far as grandkids and kids and things.
Yeah.
But the biggest fear for me was returning to the stage.
Yeah. Yeah, you're a singer. You're a fantastic musician and guitarist, right?
Thank you. I just that was a fear to get up there, and when you see me get up there and I'm in this gorgeous dress and boots and my hair is all beautiful and the makeup's done, and then the voice comes out.
Right. Right. Because you do have a deep voice.
And that's something I wanted to talk about, being older as we transition. One of the myths and misunderstandings about transitioning. The older you are when you come out, it's never, let me say first of all, it's never too old to transition. Never too old. Do it, explore it, whatever you need to do.
Yeah.
But hormones, wearing dresses, it does not change the voice. When people transition from female to male, the hormones and process does affect their voice. They become more male and deeper. Unfortunately, we don't get the same gift from the gods we transition from male to female unless we do major work voice and major surgeries on tracheal surgeries. And because I'm a previous singer and I have band and I have recordings and music I do, that I can't change my voice. I have to come out and be this gruff sounding. And many times I've been addressed as like, sir, you don't look like you sound.
Of course, of course. And the good news about that is, and respectfully, the good news about that is some of the best singers have that more masculine undertone, right? Think of some of the great singers of our time, right? So in a way, that there's a bit of a blessing that goes with that you're able to maintain your identity whilst still having this powerful, vocal chords to be able to sing the way that you do, because you do sing very well. Ladies and gentlemen, if you've just tuned in, by the way, you've tuned into Act 3 on CHLY 101.7. But one of my guests, Tami Nunning, has also been on Shaw Spotlight on the show on several things. So I would encourage you, if you have not listened to Tami, you should definitely go back to some of the Shaw broadcasts, as you've opened a number of our shows actually over the years. And so yeah, just saying.
Thank you.
Just saying. I mean, I haven't done our station identification, but I do want people to know that you do have quite an outstanding background in that. I'm going to bring us back to our conversation though, in regards to trans though. So actually I probably should do a proper station identification now that I did that the way I did. If people have just tuned in, we're having a conversation about being transgender and what does that look like and how did it happen and what do people who know nothing like me need to know so that we can be supporting whatever that looks like, however that looks, whether you're a member of the family, whether you see someone on the street. Let's get rid of these barriers. Let's talk about sometimes more difficult issues than we know necessarily how to talk about, and hopefully we'll shed some light on that today. If you just tuned in, this is CHLY 101.7 FM. I'm Kathy Holmes. You're listening to Act 3. My guests are Trish Bingham and Tami Nutting. Both identify as she, her, and we're talking fabulous talks today. So thank you again for tuning in. I want to go back to your age, and I apologize for that for a second. You know, we want to be careful not to put ageism on top of things, but you did point something out to me that I find curious. I'm turning 60 this year. And I know for myself that what things that were much more difficult for me in my youth and into, you know, being a mom and all of that stuff, as I've grown older, it's easier for me to actually be authentically who I am, despite and in spite of whatever is happening. Did you really notice, Trish, that in the last 16 you've grown more powerful? Have you, like, powerful in yourself and who you are and what you stand for and what you believe in? And if so, what has that journey looked like for you in that process?
In the last 6 years?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Last 6 years.
Okay.
Based on, I mean, the way you wanted, like maybe you had wanted to come out earlier, right? But here we are now.
Previous to me coming out, I worked a 12-hour shift driving truck, and when I got off work, I went home and sat in my basement and drank beer.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't happy out. I didn't want to go out. I didn't want to go see people. I didn't want to be around people.
Yeah.
Right? And for quite a few years, that's all I did was work, home, work, home, work, home. I didn't want to do anything. When I came out, there was like a light switch. Like I said, when I pushed that enter button, the whole world came off me. I felt, you know, just amazing. And I decided then that I was going to hit the ground with my feet running.
Yeah.
When I came out, I hardly even knew what transgender was. I just knew I wanted to be female. I didn't know what transgender was all about yet.
Can we just stop there for a second?
Yep.
Because I don't either. I'll be honest with you. I don't understand the difference of transgender as opposed to drag queen, as opposed to taking that full changeover.
Transsexual.
All of that. If you don't mind,
let's talk
about that a little bit. Yeah, for sure.
We've been talking about that with another friend of ours too.
Yeah.
And trying to figure out what that label is, if you can even say that, right? Yeah. When I first came out, and I Googled all this stuff, and I decided, okay, I'm transgender. I'm transitioning my gender from male to female. Then another friend of ours, she used to identify as a cross-dresser.
Yes.
But as I said to her a few weeks back, well, you don't dress as a man ever. So why would you say you're a cross-dresser? Right? So we've been going back and forth trying to figure out. I said, you know what, just go by your name, right?
Yeah.
I'm Trish. And but we did I can't remember what that thing was called, but we did watch a program and it was all on that stuff. And I figured out where I fit in now because I've had all my operations. Now I'm a transsexual because now I've transitioned my sexual
organs
body
and
organs.
Sure. Yeah. You're reproductive. Yeah.
So now when I introduce myself as Trish Hope Bingham, she, her.
Yeah.
And I'm a woman with transgender experience. So
you're a woman with transgender experience who has gone through the hormone, You've gone through the sexual orientation change of body parts to be a woman.
Yeah.
But there are many people that are transgender that don't necessarily shift, right? And so can we explore that a little bit?
I'd like to touch on that also, if I may. Yeah. So within this, to start off with, I say transgender is basically an umbrella term,
Okay.
and that can cover a wide spectrum of people that are everything from non-binary, which is they define themselves as not defining as either sex or gender. They're or either gender. Sex is different. Sorry, Polly.
Yeah.
Now, transgender is many layers to that word also. So I'm transgender. I'm a transgender woman, and I've transitioned using hormones, expression, how I dress, many things that I've legally changed my name, legally birth certificate, all that's been changed to female. And I am on the waiting list for those surgeries. So once I get those surgeries, I will then be transsexual. A cross-dresser is something different altogether, which obviously is confusing for a lot of people. A cross-dresser is a man, can be a man or a woman, doesn't matter, who generally will dress for the purpose of a sexual gratification, like will dress up on a Friday or a Saturday night, gain a pleasure from it. They'll go out, have a fetish event or something. And I'm sure there's going to be many people that are commenting, I know nothing what I'm talking about. I've got it all wrong. And, please clarify, because it is there's so much to this conversation that there's so many layers, so many, so cross-dressing specifies somebody doing it for, and will actually never change their gender. There'll be a woman on Friday night, but come Monday morning or Saturday morning, they're out on the golf course back as who they were assigned at birth.
Understood. Yeah.
Drag queen is somebody who will do that for monetary gain, entertainment purposes. Where drag began is, say, the previous generations, they didn't have access to things like transgender, like the things that we have now. So I was speaking with a drag queen recently, and she said, Tami, if I was in your generation, I'd be doing what you did. But in my generation, the best that we were able to do was I was a drag queen, and I'm the girl. They've been happily married for 25 years. Oh my God, they're the best couple ever. But it's like the generational things can change where what we can do now. The drag queens, that was their best thing we could do because that's what society allowed. And through pushing that envelope and education, like things we're doing today, that yes, transgender is a great big word. There's a lot of myths and a lot of misunderstanding.
But I like how you termed it. I like how you put it as an umbrella, because a lot of, even things like Alzheimer's and dementia, the way people understand it, Alzheimer's is not dementia. Dementia is the umbrella, and Alzheimer's is one of the spokes of it. And so it made it easier to have those conversations. This umbrella term actually does make it easier to have the conversation in that comparison, right? To be able to sort of have that bigger picture. But there is something that you said that I find uniquely interesting, and that is the generational aspect, because I know myself, and even in the last 5 years, right? And again, I'm turning 60 soon, so I've watched a lot of people in my life who were considered to be drag queens or considered to be cross-dressers over years that were shunned. And I am now seeing a real shift because of the education, because people are talking, and it's more acceptable now to be non-binary. It's more acceptable now to be a trans person. It's more acceptable to have the reconstructive surgery, and at a time when it was never covered under any circumstances, and the costs were so exorbitant that people couldn't even begin to fathom that. So we are seeing some shifts. Has the community seen those shifts? And is there some, and pardon the pun, is there some pride that is attached to that? Like how has that supported you as an individual?
In the 6 years that since I came out, there was nothing at the beginning.
Yeah.
Um, Tammy joined me 4 months after I came out,
Yeah.
and we both uh, put our selves out there to for the community to see. This is what we are. This is who we are.
Yeah.
Right? We're not really much different than anybody else. Nope.
No,
We
of
do
course
all the
not.
same things that everybody else does.
Absolutely.
Right? Just we do it happily in our own skins.
Well,
Yeah.
the thing we do
Mm.
different is we stick our head above the water, because most people that are trans or non-binary or in the queer community, they just want to be left alone. They just let me do my job, let me raise my family, let me have my dreams, my desires, my aspirations, let me
Yeah.
experience my failures. Trish and I, we do it all publicly.
Yeah.
We're here, we're queer, we're in your face, you're gonna see us. I'm up on a stage singing. How can I not be seen and be noticed? And hey, that's going to start a conversation.
I heard, and that's such a great segue today. On my breakfast morning, I was at a fabulous place that I used to go to when I was married. I hadn't been there for many years and decided that I'd take a stop. And of course, when you're having breakfast by yourself, you kind of scroll, right? And Jane Fonda was accepting an award. I think it was a dated award, but nonetheless, she was accepting an award. And she said her quote, which I kept with me because I thought it was so important. It's more important to be interested than interesting. And I resonated with that so much because I think that sometimes people are not taking the time to be interested. And
Right.
so there's this gap in understanding when we're not interested in figuring out why and how that we are. I mean, even when we're talking to our own family members, this is why it's so interesting to me as well, is that when I think about family members, right, that have just started a new career, or they've just started a new they're living in a new place, or they've just gone on a fabulous vacation. Just offline a few moments ago, we were talking about Vegas, right? So
Right.
like we're always interested in, how was your experience? Tell us more. And yet for difficult conversations, it's hard to open that door. Has that been the case for you guys as well? Have you, when you first came out, we talked a little bit about the Facebook thing, people falling off the map, but
Terrified.
you are boldly, Tami, going, I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm queer. And so what's your
Yeah.
biggest fear with all of that? And has any of your fear been rationalized or realized, I should say?
In some ways, they have been rationalized. In other ways, I've experienced amazing support from the community.
Yes.
Like when we first came out, there was nothing. Nobody knew us, and getting up on stage, I definitely got the stares, the looks, the sneers. This may sound conceited, but thank God I'm talented. I can actually sing and play guitar, and that kind of caught people's attention to like, then maybe there's more to this person than just a dress. It's not just a stage gimmick, right? Like that's a drag queen, that's a stage gimmick, right? And I'd like to talk about authenticity of when I came out. Why I never experienced anything like the musical success or joys or experiences that I've experienced in the last 5 years, and I've played for 45 years. It's all the same music. I haven't stopped playing. It's all the same music. And I've had to ask myself, well, what changed? I changed. I'm not pretending to be somebody else. And in the music business and in this world, if you pretend at any time to be somebody you're not, people pick up on that. But if you're authentic and you put yourself out as real, they pick up on that too.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more.
And I've had the best shows and I've ever experienced in my career in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
My scariest moment was at a women's march, being asked to perform at a women's march in Nanaimo here, and there was 500 women all marching for women's equality, and I'm pretty new out there, And I'm like, Trish, what have I got myself into here, right?
Right.
Get up on stage and the room is just dead quiet.
Wow.
You know, start playing. I ended the song and it was a standing ovation.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. I
So
mean, there's something to be said for that.
that to me is accolades of the community that I'm recognized and accepted for authentically being me.
Yeah.
So there's a, once again, and I know I like this quote as well. It's an old quote, you know, be yourself because everybody else is taken.
Yeah, that's
Right?
right.
Yeah, right. You know,
So, you know, there's something to be said with having your authentic self. And I think that we as human beings are destined to be ourselves. We're born to be ourselves. We're not born to be somebody else. We may mimic other people. We might follow up with social norms and such, but really at the end of the day, we're born to be. That's why none of us look the same, although you can find that, you know, doppelganger or poppelganger, whatever the word is, like that stuff you can find. But at the end of the day, no one is ever you. And so being yourself is the most important. I want to talk a little bit about the process for yourself medically. And again, only as much as you'd like to share. But with the hormone therapies and all of that, I'm curious about what that's done to your body overall. The chemical imbalance or balances that you had to work through. You know, can you talk a little bit about that? Because that's a big decision to go into the hormone therapy. Can we talk a little about that?
In the beginning, when I first started my hormone replacement therapy, um, the the mood swings were really awful
Yeah.
because the estrogen that I take 4 milligrams of estrogen every day, and when a cisgendered woman has her cycle, she gets 1 milligram ingested into her body through her body, right? Well, I take 4 milligrams every day. And at the beginning, it was very dicey on whether or not I was going to have a good day or a bad day.
Yeah. welcome to womanhood
like,
at
stay away
best.
from me, right?
Full
hence the
stop.
word why I call them whirly girly pills.
Right? Right? Exactly.
As it went along, nothing seemed to be happening for me, body wise.
Uh-huh.
And then about year 2, I started noticing that I was getting breast tissue in my chest. So I was like, oh. And so I went to see my doctor and said, it's supposed to happen. Like I got lumps in my breast here. Is that supposed to happen? He goes, well, yeah,
Yes.
take the hormones.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'm one of the very few that I know of that did not have to have reconstructive surgery on the top.
Mhm.
Like,
You were blessed with already having.
yeah,
Yeah.
hormones already did that for me.
Wow.
Right. So
That's really
I'm
good.
quite happy with that. And then the process of going through that, though, I did go to Vancouver to see a doctor over there.
Mhm.
And I got over there to the appointment and she took some pictures and stuff like that. Then she says, you're not going to get it. I'm like, well, why? It's because you're already too big. And I was, at that point, I was a B cup. I was like, well, these are not very big, lady. Right? And then I came back home, and then about 8 months later, I got a call from Montreal
Mhm.
to be out there in 3 weeks for bottom surgery. And most people, when you tell them that you're going to be doing that to them, they get a little bit
It's a little
okay, well,
freaky.
let's not rush this, right?
Yeah, well,
But
exactly. And I don't want to slow that part down. I actually want to
right,
stay there for a minute because that's got to be like with respect, a man's genitalia is a huge conversation, right? And when you're going to eliminate that, That
Yeah.
could not have been an easy conversation at best with yourself.
With it, you know what? It was an easy conversation because it was that mindset was made up as soon as they offered it to me. When my
Oh,
doctor said, okay, well, your transition will take about this much time because we need to do this step, this step, this step
yeah,
to get to the final goal. And I said, okay, let's do that because I did not want
yeah,
those parts anymore.
yeah,
Right? I didn't enjoy them.
yeah.
Uh, Nobody enjoyed it, so I
Right.
didn't want it. Right? So when I got that call, I was 100% ready to do that.
That's
And
important.
then I got another call for upper surgery. Then they decided, oh, they can do it. And I went, well, it's too late now because I'm already a little bit bigger than that now, and I'm going to Montreal for more important surgery for
Yes,
me.
yes.
And yeah, and then I went to Montreal uh, 45 minutes later, and I stayed awake for it. 45
You
minutes
stay. Whoa,
later,
whoa, 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 whoa! Stop, 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 stop. How do you stay awake for that? I mean, how did they just
I just had an
freeze
epidural.
you? And oh
Yeah,
my God. Oh
it
my,
was during COVID,
I'm
right?
sorry, I'm gobsmacked.
Somebody's gonna pass out here, I think.
So I didn't.
Breathe. Oh.
Oh,
I didn't want to take the anesthetic because it was right in the middle of COVID that I went,
yeah,
and I didn't want to compromise my lungs.
understood.
So I thought, just stay awake. I can do it. I know they're just going to freeze everything and it'll be okay, right? And it was great. I was up walking around about 2 hours after my surgery.
Wow.
Yeah, they're pretty
Yeah,
quick with it.
I
Yeah.
didn't want to lay in bed for too long because I know the
You're
longer
gonna
you stay
stiffen
in
up
bed,
terribly. Yeah,
yeah.
the body doesn't like to lay down after
Yeah.
surgery. It never does. Yeah.
So I got up and walked around the nurse's station in the ICU there a couple times. And the doctor said, yeah, you're doing great. Right. And my recovery was great.
How long did
The
it
end
take you to
result
recover?
is
How long, sorry to interrupt. How long did
uh,
it take you to
I was
recover?
in the hospital for 9 days.
Yeah.
Two of those days, I was actually in a hotel. Right. They flew me out to Montreal. They took me from in a limo
Wow.
to a hotel because of COVID, everything's shut. Right.
Yeah, yeah, you have
So,
no, yeah, you
yeah.
need to be in a secure environment as possible.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
got me right off the tarmac.
Yeah.
From a jet right to the hotel, and then
Wow.
hotel, everything was covered at the hotel. Meals and everything were all covered. They bring it right
Yeah.
to your door, and then 2 days later, they rushed me off 6 o'clock in the morning to the hospital, and go in, fill up some work, and by 7 o'clock, I'm on the table,
Wow.
and that was it. They did the epidural, stayed awake. They rushed me back out to my recovery bed, and then 7 days later, I'm flying back home.
So again, without being, I'm not trying to be voyeuristic, but I'm
Yeah,
curious that whole, because that's a traumatic body experience for the body. Like, never mind, mentally, it was probably very powerful. But
yeah.
for the physical side, the body side of it was probably having a bit of a stress attack. How did your body adjust to having female parts? And I because I can't really imagine, and again, I'm not trying to be rudely
Yeah, no,
voyeuristic,
no.
I'm trying to understand.
Yeah.
So how was that first experience for you using the facilities as a woman?
Um,
And was it painful, and all of that?
well, you go through a lot of routine stuff in the hospital, getting ready to go
Sure,
home,
sure.
right? So you know how to, because there's a lot of, at the very beginning, it looked like something out of the Elephant Man down there.
I'm
Didn't look
sure.
pretty, right?
No, 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 I'm
Um,
sure. A
and
lot
but
of damage, I'm sure, swelling and
yeah,
such.
you have
Yeah,
to do you have to do what they call dilating,
yeah,
and they give you 3 different size tools to take home with you, and you have to dilate every day.
yeah.
Um, but I think it was day 3 in the hospital that they took the catheter out.
Yeah.
And then I had to sit in that thing and measure how much pee I got out of me, and did that 3 times. And then they said, "No, you're fine."
Yeah.
And then they took everything else out and just put me through the routine, and it didn't hurt a bit. Like I got a very high pain threshold
Sure.
because when they did the surgery, took me back to my recovery room. They offered me pain meds, and I said no. They said, "Well, it doesn't hurt." I said, "It's uncomfortable, but it doesn't hurt."
Yeah.
But you have very high tolerance to pain.
I
So let's
know.
be honest with that one right up front.
I know.
Well, and I was about to say, like, if you must have a very high tolerance for pain, I'm not so sure that it would be that way for some other people. And
Yeah,
Right.
some are different,
but
yeah.
more importantly, I respect the fact that you chose not to, because I would imagine there's a psychological piece, there's addictions that can come with a
Yeah,
number of different things when it
absolutely.
comes to that,
Yeah.
right? Like, so let's be
I
reasonable.
didn't want it to
right? Like,
feel it. I wanted to feel everything. I didn't want
yeah,
to,
yeah,
I wanted to know what my recovery was, because when I go home, there are going to be all kinds of girls back home saying, "How did it go? How did this
of
go?"
course.
Right? And that's
Yeah.
why I
But saying
want to
it's
be. I
not
want to be that.
painful is not being honest.
No.
Yeah.
For me, I said no. But for
Yeah.
the other girls back here, they want to know. I want to be the one to be able to say, "This is how it goes." Right?
Yeah.
Don't fear it. Right?
Yeah, you can mentor it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you're quite right. Everybody's experience, regardless, is going to be different. But to be frank and understanding about this, yes, it's going to be painful. One of the other questions that I have for you, because you are taking hormone therapy and you're down the road now, you've had the surgery some time back, you've obviously healed up, everything's good. Is there any worries about testicular cancer as a result of having a change, or cancer in your breasts? Do you have to go for mammograms and things like that on a regular basis?
I've already had a mammogram.
Yeah, they hurt, don't they? They suck.
That's not the most comfortable place to put them.
Right?
And as far as testicular, that's all gone.
Yeah.
Everything's gone, right?
So all the organs and everything have
Everything
been
is
replaced
gone.
now and tucked, and so.
And it looks exactly like any other cis woman would look.
Well, I guess what I'm more thinking is the prostate, because I didn't think that they took the prostate with it, right? Like,
No.
so, right? That's
Prostate's
what
still there, yeah.
the prostate's still there. So I was thinking more along that line than testicular, so to
prostate
speak.
was
But
moved,
yeah,
and it the prostate doesn't really do very much function that way.
Yeah.
Right. So the estrogen is not affecting it, but all it really is now is it's the pleasure spot in the vagina.
yeah.
It's a G spot. Let's put it bluntly.
Yeah.
It's a G spot.
It's the G spot.
Yeah.
Because I mean,
And I think that's important. It's the G spot.
The reconstructive surgery is extremely accurate, and it functions just as a normal vagina would.
Yeah.
Which is wonderful to the advances that we have. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
There's another topic I want to touch on before we get too far.
Yes, let's do it.
It's something that happens to a very high percentage of transgender women, and that is the sex trade.
Yes,
I'm
really glad. Big conversation and an important one.
When I first came out, I used to be a truck driver, right? They don't want me.
Yeah.
And I soon found out that nobody wanted me, but I needed a job.
Yeah.
So I approached somebody that I knew who was in the sex trade industry, and she counseled me, and I got into it. It was the only way I was going to make any money. Right?
Okay, we have to stop there for 1/2 a second, because that is a huge conversation and I don't want to miss a little bit of it. I'm just looking at the time here. So I find it's important for me to just do a quick station identification and to also just do a little bit of feed out, because I want to know more, and I know our listeners do too. If you have just tuned into Act 3 on CHLY 101.7 FM, I just want to thank you for staying with us and listening to this incredibly great, transparent discussion about transgender with my guests, Trish Hope Bingham and Tami Nutting. They are both being very, very honest, expressing and sharing their life experiences in as trans has unfolded. And again, I've got mumble mouth because I don't really know how to talk this way. And so I'm doing my best because I know that the rest of our community probably wants to ask these questions as well. And so if, forgive me if I'm not coming out as eloquent as I'd like to. That's part of the learning process that we all need to experience to understand what's happening in our community. If you have also just tuned in, there's two things that I want to share with you. Effective very recently, actually just in the Lunar New Year's weekend, I have now, Act 3 is now available on Spotify, and it's also available on iHeartRadio as well as on our YouTube station.
Yay!
So I do encourage you, I know, yay! So I do encourage you to check back and listen to this broadcast, share this broadcast with your friends. There's no question in my mind that there are people out there that have and love transgender people in their lives. What better opportunity to break the stigma than to have a candid conversation with your family and your friends. And so we really do encourage you to sit down and open up the dialogue. So in the process of doing that, all you have to do is go to Act 3 Media Productions, and you will find me on YouTube or find us on YouTube. I also would like to remind you that we are on Shaw Spotlight every day, actually, several times a day, Vancouver Island wide. Tune in to Shaw Spotlight and for our Act 3 program. I hope that these two incredible guests that I have with me today will join us on that show as well. In the meantime, I want to bring us back to a very important, we just got into some really good stuff. Let's get back to the conversation. And thanks again for listening. So, Trish,
Yes.
oh my gosh, like you love, like talk about the hanger piece of going into the sex trade, because honestly, people do wonder, like, how does one move forward? And that in itself is another huge conversation. The sex trade industry, of course, is as old as time. It's been around for as long as we can remember. But what does that look like for a new woman in the industry?
The sex trade isn't biased. It doesn't
discriminate,
right, against anybody, right? Anybody can do it, obviously. When I started into it, I was very early in my transition. It was only 4 months.
Wow.
But it did look after me very well.
Were you scared though? Like, in all fairness, you're a brand new woman, but I mean, the fact that you're a larger, more voluptuous human, fabulous. And my best friend and I used to always say, like, we're one day away from having to go down that road. Like, this is a life, especially these days where people are financially struggling. It's not a decision you make lightly. We could have very easily in our 20s turned down that road, 20s and 30s. Now in our 60s, I don't think that will happen. That's not on my card. I'm not intending to go there, but I can see how people need to and do. And so, but the mind, the goblin that goes with that to even get down that road that first time.
Yeah, it was very scary, especially the very first time when that phone rang. I went, and I picked it up, and it was a client, and I was like, okay, right, and then, but I had two friends there with me in the other
adjacent area,
and so they were there to make sure nothing went wrong. It was very, it felt kind of really weird situation, right? But then
did you lose your virginity to the sex trade in this regard as a woman?
No,
Okay.
no. Um,
Because
no.
I'm curious about that. And again, you don't have to answer any of these questions. You can
I'm
shut me
I'm
down comfortably.
I'm
But
fully comfortable in answering anything you got to ask.
well, I'm glad, and I cannot tell you how much I value you being so transparent. This is really interesting. And
This is my way of getting it out to the public. So I want
well,
you
and
to ask anything that they're going to ask it.
that's the question I want to ask is
Yeah.
that, I mean, because I remember losing my virginity and I was a younger gal, right?
Yeah,
And it's not like you've never had sex before. I mean, you were a guy, like
right.
you had relations with your wife and so forth, right?
Yeah,
But it's a whole lot different when you now have another dynamic attached. You no longer have male genitalia. You have physically become a woman in every sense of the word, in the biblical sense of the word. And now you're out there in the sex trade, like just even the shift of being a truck driver
right.
to, like, I'm sure, like you said
I
earlier,
know.
6 years ago, you never thought this was going to happen. And now here
Oh
we
God, no.
are,
I
right?
know. And
Right?
for most of it, I'm living my dream life.
Yeah.
You know, for most of it, this is my dream life, right? I wish that I didn't have to do what I had to do in the beginning, but
And do you have to still do that now at times?
no.
Do things come up now that's all past you? But I'll bet you counsel people that may have had to take that journey. Yes.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah. No, after my surgery, I didn't really want to. I didn't really want to do that, right?
Yeah.
For me, I wanted to save it, that
Yeah.
part, for the right person, right? And well, well, it happened.
know, I just
But
want
you know what? Things happen, and you're absolutely right with that. And just before we move on, because I do want to listen to what you have to say, Tami. So I'm sorry not to get there just right yet. Just to continue, just briefly, Trish, so you stayed in that industry for a period of time. You've stepped away from that. Um, have you found that relationship, and or have you had a relationship, and how has that been for you in the way of fulfillment in your overall mental health and fulfillment? What does that look like for you?
um, hey, I've had, I've had a relationship with a man, that I've had for the past, I'm gonna say 4 years,
Mhm.
3 years, and not a boyfriend girlfriend relationship kind of thing, but just a very good,
Companion.
yes. And he's amazing. I did try to have a romantic relationship with another man, recently, back in December, and or November, December, and that ended because he thought he could hit me.
Oh,
And I said, no, that's not right. Take me home right now. This is over. Right? No, you wanted a second chance. I said, no second chances if you're going to hit.
yeah.
God
Right? That
bless you for
doesn't
that.
happen.
Yeah, absolutely
And
not
and
under any
then
circumstances.
Yeah.
one other incident, uh, in late December, I was sexually assaulted, um, and that is still traumatizing right now. It still got me. If I see this guy's picture somewhere, uh, my anxiety goes right through the roof right now, instantly, and I just don't know how to get past that part.
Have you had counseling?
No,
May I
no.
invite you to do that? May I invite you to take that time? For women who survive sexual assault, which is an entire another radio show and an entire another conversation, sexual assault 1 in 3 women will be sexually assaulted in their lifetime. It is an incredibly horrific and difficult conversation to have with self after it happens.
Yes.
There are a lot of survivors of sexual abuse, and thankfully there are many resources. And I'm encouraging anybody who is listening to this program, the moment you have been in that situation, there is help. It is important that you are able to move forward. You need to deal with that trauma. It is trauma,
It was
and you
it
need
was
support.
quite a few times where I kept on blaming myself. I could have
It's not
done
your
it
fault.
differently. I
It's
could
not
have
your
done
fault.
something else, right?
Yeah.
And I started saying that exact same thing to myself. It's not your fault.
It's
His
not your
fault,
fault.
right? But it just for a long time there, a couple of weeks, I was like, what I could have done this differently. Well, it was just a really bad situation that happened, and
Well, the good news is we're moving forward.
yep.
I have to tell you that I've already gone over on my program. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to we're going to stop now. We have to. However, I would like people to come back to this conversation for the second episode. We will continue the conversation next week. In the meantime, if I don't go right now, Chili's going to give me a hard time. So I'm going to jump us off. And I encourage everybody who's listening right now to make sure that you come back to our show next week at 1 o'clock and listen to us on CHLY 101.7 FM. Thanks so much for being with us today. Have yourself a great day. And to my guests,
Yeah.
God bless you. We'll talk again shortly. Bye
All
for
right.
now.
Thanks, Hazzy.
Thanks, Kathy.